Welcome to USIP ISIP, a weekly podcast with Northern Lights Winery founder Doug Bell, exploring the experiences from leaders in business, social media, and family. Now here's this week's exceptional guest.
Welcome to USIP ISIP. My name's Doug Bell, the host, and I'm really excited because despite being the owner-operator of a winery, I am not very creative, but I'm joined by someone who's incredibly creative and is an inspiration to a lot of people in northern BC. Heralded from Prince George, we've got Kim. She owns the Makery here, which is a really cool arts cafe where you can actually do different projects as well as have some delicious coffee. And we're going to be talking about that later on, but I'm just really excited to get deep into your story because there is so much to you that I don't necessarily know about. We haven't had a lot of time to have opportunity to chat. So I just want to learn to start off with maybe your story. Like, where did you come from? How did you get started? Where does this creativity come from? Because it just bubbles out of you every time I've seen you.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. It's so cool to be here. I am a Prince George born and raised kid. I've been here my whole life. Stepped away just a little bit to go to art school. We'll talk about that. I have been one of those kids who just always was, I was just born with a pencil in my hand. I was shy and I would quietly sit in the corner and draw and just observe life around me. And that was it for me for years and years and years. If anybody ever asked me what I wanted to be, it was an artist. And it was just from day one, knew that that's what I was going to do. And did all of the things in life that you do as a teenager to build up to that as a career. So yeah, I went off to university and started studying how to be a painter and very, very quickly realized that I did not want to be a gallery artist. So had some really cool experiences leading up to that, going to big shows and representing Prince George as the youngest artist in northern BC to go and, experience the art world in competitions. And then, I just realized that it wasn't actually what I wanted. And after a life of pursuing that, felt very, very lost. And had to wound up switching gears and getting into business of all things. So it was a complete 180 for me. Very quickly came back to the arts as something that I needed for my soul. So after many years of working kind of corporate jobs, I spent a lot of time working in marketing and communications. That's what most of my career has been spent in. So still very creative fields where I could use a lot of my art skills, but it was just a different area to do it. And so I found that it was a really great fit for me. And just kept working in those fields for ages. And then wound up in a position in life where we all have them, where some kind of personal trauma will happen. And that happened and hit us really, really hard. And as we were going through the toughest time in our life, found the call to be creative as a thing that was good for my soul. And that's what brought me back to it.
That's incredible. And I think when you're talking about the artist's journey, right? I don't know that there is a typical journey, but maybe you can bring me back in there because there's so many different components to being an artist, right? There is like the creativity. There's different canvases, so to speak, different places where you can put your energy. But you seem like you're not a generalist, but like you're creative in everything you do, and so you kind of dabble in different types of arts, different styles of arts. Like, how did that come about?
Honestly, hashtag make all the things. That is who I am. And I just have this desire to do and be part of anything creative. If it's working on set design for a production, I want to do it. If it's working on learning how to do an old master style canvas realistic painting, I want to do it. If it's free form process art where it's about the process of creating, not the finished product, I want to do that. So I'm just driven to try and experience all of those kinds of things because I just find that it just makes it all richer. And then if you find your particular niche, all of that stuff just informs what you're doing. So the more experience that you have in any field that you're in, the better that you are. And that's no different with art.
One of the things you do so exceptionally well is that you share that love with other people and help others maybe realize their creative potential and their size. What would you say, like, how did that come about? Like, when did you do it with some friends, or, you know, what was the moment where you kind of said, I want to share this with other people. I want to help spur their creativity.
Yeah, it's so fun. So when I started doing stuff for myself, I just started, you know, I didn't have very much time. So when I paint and I lose track of time, and it'll be 8 hours later and I will not have eaten. So I was just looking for something really small and quick and easy to do, and just started making some silly little critters. And then people would ask to buy them. And I was like, okay, sure. And so I would make people things, and then it just kind of evolved from there. People wanted more, so I would make more, and then people started asking me to teach them how to make them. And I would do that, and then it just kind of grew from there, to being a thing that, you know, what we were creating was quite in demand. And the more that I got,
can you describe these? Like, what did they look like?
Oh, it was anything and everything. It was for like jewelry and funny little creatures that, you know, some of them, I'm a bird person, so anything and everything that's bird related I will make. Lots of floral stuff. I would get into ceramics for a little while. I would do just small little illustrations, just anything I could do fairly quickly, so that I would have that half-hour creative time. And I would end up with something at the end of the day, and people seem to like it. So yeah, it was all over the map.
Now, what were you working at the time, and was this off the side of your desk, so to speak?
Yeah, 100%. So I was working completely corporate executive level jobs in marketing and communications, and, you know, working those insane hours, but still finding the time. And the more demand and more that people asked of me to do it, the more committed I was to spending that time to do it, which was really good for me.
Absolutely. And I can only imagine if you were so you're a, you know, executive level, or you're communications specialist, you've got this career that you're clearly very successful in. And these people, are they your friends? Are they family? Like, how did the word get out of these things you're doing?
I have no idea. Honestly, I think a lot of it was word of mouth. I would just start, you know, Instagram and Facebook were becoming a thing. And so, I'd post stuff there. I would start doing it with some friends of mine, and we would share and post, and it just kind of took off from there. You know, that social media is a good thing. and people would just start to find out about things. And yeah, a friend and I, we ended up having a night market and bringing out frozen paddle and, you know, just doing a fun thing. And we had people lined up down the street waiting to buy the stuff that we created. And it's just like, how cool is that?
Absolutely. Tell me, what does it feel like when your passion aligns with other people? Like, they're coming to you, they're saying, we really value this. This is super cool. Did you get a lot of pride from that? What did you feel like?
It's the best. One of the things that I love about the Makery is that I built it with the knowledge, a couple of things. One is that when people would ask me to teach them how to do things, the space would never be ideal for it. And so I wanted to create a space that was made for making. The other thing is that I knew that the people who can really benefit from touching creative life don't think that they're creative at all. And so what I see happening at the Makery was what I had, you know, knocked on wood and hoped that would happen, is that there are a lot of people coming into our space who would never, ever consider themselves to be creative. They would never go into an art gallery. Like, it's just not part of their world. And they're there and they're loving it. And then you get people who have always said that they're not creative at all, making something. And like, my favorite is when grown-ups at the end of their time with us there, they come up to you before they leave and they're like, look what I made. And they're like 5 years old. And it's just, you're like, it looks awesome. And everybody's having a great time. And and just enjoying that somebody has taken a couple of hours out of their life to make something that may or may not end up on a shelf. It's not going to end up in an art gallery, but they had a really good time doing it and suddenly feel more empowered with their creative self. That's so cool.
It's so cool. And you're totally right. The people, we go to school and maybe there's some creativity, but we're still trapped within a box when we're in school. Yeah. And then we graduate and there's no incentive in life to be really creative at that point. And so having, people or safe spaces where you can actually go to be creative is very impactful. So was there like a first time or one of the first times when you decided to teach somebody else how to be creative, maybe started your own classes? Is there like a memory you have, like one of the first times, a good experience that came out of that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. One of my first times teaching was still a young teenager, and I was part of a local arts group here, and I actually taught a couple of classes. One was to kids and, like mid-teenage kind of years. And it was really fun working with them. But the most rewarding was a special needs group. And it was so people who had limited mobility, they had some, mental challenges. And I got to work with them at a very process level. So I talk about process art a lot with my staff, because there's the art where it's like, here's a finished product, now you go do it. Mm-hmm. Process art is just creating for the sake of creating. And so it's just allowing people to explore mediums, to play with paint, to play with chalk, to just play and experience it in a completely different way. And it was the most rewarding thing to watch people who had challenge with that doing it. Mm-hmm. So cool.
And probably the feeling of accomplishment that they would get would just be incredible.
Oh, they had so much pride in what they were creating, and they would bring you over to show you a fun way that they found to hold the chalk that would allow them to do X, Y, or Z. And it's so cool just seeing people feel connected and freed to do something that otherwise is scary for them.
Absolutely. And you're so inclusive, and I think when you talk about your business now and the things that you've done to try and bring in all different age groups, all different abilities, people who have disabilities can come there. You've clearly demonstrated, that you do want to be a part of everyone's lifestyle. Was there like one student that stands out in your mind that just really made an impact to you that you're really proud of?
There's been some clients that have come into the Makery who, I don't have one specific one, but there are just moments where you just see somebody coming in and having had a really rough time. You can tell they're going through the ringer. Mm-hmm. And they come and spend a little bit of time there, and you just see this kind of ease wash over them. It is really wonderful to see it. And I talk about this experience that we have at any table that comes in. You can almost predict it. A group will come in, they'll be all nervous and chit-chatty, then they'll start to create, and suddenly the whole table will just fall quiet, and they'll just have fallen into this meditative zen of creating, and then they'll slowly start to come out of it again. And I just love watching that with people. I just love seeing that happen.
That's I bet a really neat process to see like the emotions that they go through, and there's probably a big study to be done on how that has like a release and relaxation effect on people's lives. I know for many people who lead really stressful lives, that ability to sit down and create is as good as meditation or other things. Yeah.
Some people still get really frustrated though. And, they come in with their, I'm going to be mad and frustrated. I don't want to create, but I'm here. And then they get frustrated. And I've actually sent our customers out for a walk, and I've told them to walk around the building and come back and clear their mind and shake off the bad attitude and go on back. And it's fun, right? Like you can make all of this stuff fun. It doesn't have to be scary.
So you do a lot of different styles of events.
Yes.
Maybe tell the listeners a little bit about some of the ones that you're most passionate about that they could do at home. Like,
for sure.
Even on their own.
Yeah. So what I really love to do is, as grown-ups, we are bound to control. We want to control a situation, and to engage in a creative process, you have to lose control. And that is one of the hardest things for grown-ups to do. Kids are okay with it. Grown-ups, not so much. So we do a couple of really fun paint nights at the shop, which I love because it forces people to lose control. So one of them is we'll sit people in stools, so they're sitting 4 feet up. We put their canvas on the floor, and then we tape paintbrushes to the end of 4-foot sticks. And so what people love to do is hold their paintbrush right close to the brush and really get in there and be detailed. But when you're holding the end of a stick, and I'll smack their hands if they're starting to creep down the stick, and I'll be like, no, get back up. Because they have no control, and yet they come out with the most amazing paintings at the end of the session. Totally easy to do at home.
That's awesome. So you just take like an end of a broom or something.
Tape a brush to it. Yeah, easy peasy.
I'm definitely gonna have to try that. So wine and paints are like one. That's really good. Also, you do a lot of like other crafty things where you're putting things together. What are your top 3?
Oh, our top 3. People love to embellish stuff. So, and this is what I like about it, is that the crafting at the Makery has gotten to be just very casual. And so people it's something to do while they're visiting. And I like that. And so we have, it's called Party Animal. And so we will get all kinds of little critters and spray paint them gold. And then people get to build little outfits for them. And so they make party hats and tutus. And we've seen some absolutely crazy things come out of there, and it's adorable. Another one.
What do the critters look like?
Like they're elephants or zebras or crocodiles, or sometimes we'll find chameleons. We'll just find toys, basically, and spray paint them up and then let people decorate them. Another one of our favorites and most popular, because any age does it, is Crazy Craft in a Can. So our coffee that we use at the shop comes in cans. And so we repurpose those. And then what we do is fill them up with all kinds of supplies. And people will get a random can filled with random supplies. And they just have to build something with it. They got a hot glue gun and some scissors, and that's it. No instructions, nothing. And so we have seen some people build solar system headbands. We've had like just awesome stuff that's just purely fun.
So we've got these really cool critters. We got the coffee can. What would the third one be?
Third one is really, really simple. And it is just taking a terracotta pot, and people just love to paint them. It's something that is just so non-threatening and casual that they can do. They absolutely love just to sit there and paint something, and something that's not a canvas. It's just a thing. They absolutely love to paint things. So just really simple, basic stuff. These are things that anybody could do at home. But there's something about coming to a space that's built for it, where you can get a lovely hot chocolate or a good cup of coffee, a little bit of a treat, and you're in a space that just kind of fuels your inspiration. And also we clean up.
That's always nice when you don't have to clean up at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to get to that safe space really quickly, which you've built and is incredible, exceptional. I love it there. Before we do, tell me about Hayhurst Marketing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So Hayhurst Marketing was a venture that I did before I started the Makery. So after years in corporate work in marketing and communications, thought I'd branch out on my own and do it as a consultant, and had just an absolute blast doing it. And so the name came out of, because my name is Kim. It's not long. It takes a split second to say, but I would constantly get emails that would just say, "Hey, Kay," and then they would just carry on. And so that just naturally became the name of the business. And I did a lot of really great work.
Yeah. And so did Hayhurst Marketing, did it inspire you to build the Makery? When you started to develop that concept, maybe you were probably thinking about it a lot during that time. Yeah,
I was definitely thinking about it a lot during that time. It's funny because with Hayhurst, I have always worked with teams. And so with Hayhurst, I was really working at home, from my home office or the couch a lot of the time, and really found that I was missing people. And so was looking for a way to get back to more of my creative being, and how could I make more from that work, because it just fueled me. And then how can I get back to connecting with people, because I really missed that too. So so many of the things that I did with Hey K, though, completely just transferred over, and it's almost like I became my own client. And so I could use a lot of my marketing and comm skills for my new business I was building. And got to spend a lot of time developing a brand, which is, as I'm sure you know, the hardest thing to do for yourself.
And you're building a brand, but it's actually an extension of yourself.
Very much.
Right?
Yeah, very much. And so it becomes really hard to put that into images, put that into language, and because you're really opening yourself up to be quite raw and vulnerable by just putting yourself out there in a really real way.
Earlier you were talking about like how social media really exploded your brand. And was it easier when it was it was you, but it was your products, and so it was an extension of yourself in these things you were making. But now it's actually you in the photo, right? Totally. Like, how did that feel?
Weird. I am very much a behind the camera person. I always have been. That's your role in marketing and comms, is you're directing the photographer. Get this shot. Somebody's crying over there. Grab that. Those are the things that you're directing. And so I have to force myself in front of the camera and force myself to put my own personal stories out there. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, when we were younger, we would have called it reputation. Now they call it brand, but it's really the same thing. And so you've built the Makery.
Right.
And for those of you who have never been to the Makery or have not heard of it, it's really cool because it's a cafe and it's a center for people to be creative and learn. So you can come in, you can get a great drink, and then you can do a craft project at the same time, which is so innovative because there are a lot of cafes out there. And you can maybe play a board game or do something else, but you've really put a lot of thought into the creation of the experience. So when you were formulating this brand and this facility, how did your creativity go into everything, like the drinks and the food and the types of projects? Like, tell me what was going through your mind when you were building this.
It was a lot, because I would say that there's very little that you will see in the Makery that wasn't thought out in advance. And so building it and developing it took a lot of time because every detail that's there is very purposeful. I built a makerspace. I always like to do the chicken and the egg. What came first, the makerspace or the coffee bar? It's the makerspace. I always knew I wanted something to be a creative space. But how do you get people who don't think that they're creative into a creative space? It's with booze. It's with wine.
We like to help with
right?
That
Yeah. We go partner up a bit more. But short of having a liquor license, what's the next best thing? Well, it's coffee. And so we built a coffee bar. The coffee bar is not what we are. It is, to me, that's our marketing. Yeah. That's how we market and bring people in who would never otherwise enter a creative space. They would be like, oh, it's not for me. But they do. They come all the time because they want to come for a cup of coffee. And then they're like, that's cool. That's neat. What a neat place. And that's so fun to see. And so everything was thought out in great, great detail. So the coffee that we have has a story. The espresso machine that we have has a story. Every single element that was there, we built with my husband and I and our daughter. We built it all of it.
So how long did it take from the time you thought about, this is maybe something, this creator space is something I want to do, to the time that it actually opened? How long did that take?
I want to say about 2.5 years from like the moment I walked into my husband's office and said, so I have an idea, to it actually being real. It was fast. Yeah. once I do that, once I get an idea, it's like, okay, think it out. What are the risks? How are we going to do it? Yeah. Okay, this is what it's going to look like. This is what we're going to need for startup cash. How are we going to get that? Bing, bang, boom. Let's do it.
But 2.5 years later, you've got to. I think it's really interesting because I bet you a lot of the listeners would say 2.5 years. I mean, especially anyone under the age of 30 right now thinks 2.5 years is like half of your life.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But you're right. That actually is a very quick time to turn around a business. So what was the most, like, was there like a moment where you were about to step over the cliff and you're like, oh God, this is real?
Many of them. I think that I could have called it quits. I don't know, probably at least 10 times going into it. Signing the lease and for a commercial property is big, right? It's very different when you're getting a mortgage for your house. You know, you're going to have that debt and that responsibility. Signing a commercial property is very different, and you feel, very beholden to it. And of course, this was at a time where nobody understood what I was doing. There's nothing like the Makery out there. I haven't found, when we were doing research to see what feasibility would look like, I found nothing like it. You're right, there's cafes that do board games, but they don't have a model like we do. It's different. Mm-hmm. And so how do we tell people that this is something that people will even want? And then when we tell people what it is, their response is, so do you think that there's a market for that? And I'm like, yes, just let me do it and I'll show you. And so it's very much the field of dreams, build it and they will come. Sometimes you just have to show people what you're thinking about. And they don't really understand it till they're standing in the space. So it was really, really scary.
Well, if you're building something new, people aren't necessarily going to understand, and you have to have the conviction to see that through. Yeah. I know for personally, when we were building the winery, Northern Lights Winery was a fruit winery in Prince George, in a place that had never had a winery before. And we told our story to many people, and we're told time and time again, we don't know if you're dreaming or if you're delusional, because this just doesn't feel like something that's going to work. And the ideas that are the most successful are the ones that you're passionate about, and that meet the highway between this is something that's really needed and this is something that's really hard. Because if something's easy, chances are somebody's already done it before. Yeah. And so you've probably come across some real challenges in building your business before you got open, and then once you got open. Yeah. Maybe tell me a little bit about like that.
Oh yeah, there's been so many. The number one is just selling people on an idea that they don't understand. And you're dealing with grown-ups who, again, don't think that they're creative. And so they would go, I'll never go there. It's like, well, haha, here you are. But so selling an idea that people don't understand is really, really hard. And even when you have a background in marketing, it's hard to sell something that people can't see. So yeah, it's really different. And then, you very quickly in business learn what you don't know. And, a lot of my career has been spent in economic development and working with businesses on ideas. And I'm like, I think I know. I think I'm okay. I think I can run a business. And lo and behold, there's things that you never think that you're going to need to know, like building codes. I'm not a builder. Why do I need to know that? Well, apparently you do. And so there's just lots of hurdles like that you never foresee. We are a pandemic baby. Mm-hmm. That threw a huge loop at us.
So what was the month you opened?
So we opened at the end of August. We signed our lease for a property the week before everybody was sent into isolation. And our thinking was, cool, it'll give us a few months to do our renovations. We'll be ready to open when everything's done. Here we are. Yeah, here we are. It's not the case at all. And so it became, we have yet to have what I would, in quotations, put a normal day of operations. We've always had some form of restriction on our business. And so, Yeah, I can't wait to see what it looks like when
Yeah.
it lives.
But you've survived and you've thrived in a lot of ways, and you've now become a very central part of downtown Prince George, where people go to you. I think the other thing that many people tell me, including a lot of my friends who are great customers of yours and my wife as well, they're always talking about how you're about the experience, right? Like the Makery is about the experience. And so one of the ways you've done that is by taking your previous experience of bringing people together, and you've brought that to the Makery. So you kind of have a business model where you've got a lot of different components, a lot of different things happening. You're educating people, you're introducing people to their creativity or the creative side, and you're creating a safe space for people to come as a special occasion. Is that something you think is a real strength, or was that like a struggle for you?
Oh no, that was all done with intent. And so the experience was everything. So what you see when you walk into the space, to what you're smelling, and where the oven is positioned. So when we're pulling out a batch of cookies, where that's going to be, all done very intentionally. We use a lot of silliness. I talk about whimsy a lot with my team, and how if you create a sense of whimsy, people can get caught up in that kind of goofy, slightly fun energy, and that creates a fun space for them to be in. And so if we lead by being goofy, people will feel more likely to shed some of their, buttoned up tie restraints. And so, it's right down to how we answer the phone. In the morning, it's howdy do, makeroo. And in the afternoon, it's good crafternoon. And my staff, every time I bring on a new staff, they roll their eyes and they look at me and I'm like, do it. Do it. It makes people smile, and you're setting the tone for what the experience is going to be. Yeah.
So in your previous positions, you probably had some people working underneath you, but it's maybe a bit different being a business owner.
Oh, for sure.
What were some of the things that you learned when you started to work with people and have to develop them and your own systems and that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah, we are developing on the fly. The first day that we opened, nobody knew how to do anything. I've never worked in the food service industry before, so that was all new. We have just been developing everything from scratch, which in some ways has been really cool, because then our whole team can bring in their varied experiences and start to build and inform how we do things. You have none of that. This is how we've always done it. It just, I guess we're going to try this today and see if this sticks and works. It also brings about a ton of stress, because there's some people who love to have that. This is how we do things. This is where this goes. This is how this goes. And that is not the space that we're in. We're in constant state of flux and change. And I think, for me, I have spent most of my time working with fairly senior people. And so I'm working with a lot of very young, new staff. And so leading that team is also very interesting to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny, when we started Northern Lights Winery, and I remember one story when we were very young. As a matter of fact, we hadn't opened up yet. And we built the winery. We have a couple of other businesses in town, but we really invested all of our money into it. And we had to invest our time, literally our blood, sweat, and tears. 100%. So first we had to build the orchard, and then we built the facility after that, because of course you needed fruit to be able to grow to make the winery. And we had some great builders, but we were getting to the end of the project, and it was obviously money was getting more and more scarce, as I can imagine you would know about. So my father and me basically finished the entire building ourselves. So we did all of the siding, we did all of the interior. And so I'm on a 20-foot high Zoom boom in the middle of our wine shop, which overlooks the Nechako River. And it's a beautiful sunny blue sky day. And all of a sudden somebody walks in the front door, and I'm covered in paint from head to toe. I'm sweating because it's sunny and it's very hot near the roof. And this person says, "Oh, hey, I'm wondering if I could do a wine tasting." And of course, we weren't even open at the time. And so I came down off of the Zoom boom, and we come 20 feet down. I get down to the bottom, and it's this nice elderly couple that had come to town from Alaska. They were actually coming through the highway, and they saw the building on the river, and the parking wasn't, I don't even think it was paved yet, and they just decided to try. And I'm like, you know what? You're not coming back any other time. Let's do it. It was the first time I had ever done a wine tasting for like a customer, right? Like I had done it for friends and stuff like that, but it was the most nerve-wracking thing when they come to the counter and I'm pouring the wine. And I'm like, how am I supposed to touch this bottle? What am I supposed to do? And then I pour the wine into the glass and I'm like, okay, well, this wine has this in it and this in it, but I'm really trying to create like this mental image of the experience that I want. And I can tell you that until you do it, it doesn't click. But then that moment, I recognized the experience that I provide is going to be what they remember when they leave. Yep. And I was able to fumble my way through it. Thank goodness I didn't say anything wrong like fuck or shit or whatever it might be. And then they were just blown away by the product. And I knew that we had something because they had no reason to need or want to be supportive of our product, but they ended up doing it anyways. So it's really fun when you get that first experience. So when you get into the actual business and people are all looking at you like you're supposed to know what you're talking about, but you don't, what does that feel like?
Oh, the imposter syndrome is real, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's really funny because we had the same thing happen where I was in the process. So my husband and I did all of the work from the drywall to building the bar. And the only other thing that we had built together was a planter box. So it's an impressive feat that we're still married. But we were building a wheelchair ramp. And I decided to do it. It's like, if I'm going to have a wheelchair ramp, it's going to be the most beautiful one in town. And so I've got all of these angles and angular pieces of wood. And I had my saw, miter saw, that's what it's called. And, was doing all of these cuts and had the doors open. It was a beautiful day. And the same thing, some tourists walked by, saw what I was doing, stopped and chatted, asked about the place. We talked for a long time. I got to give them an explanation and a tour of all the restaurants downtown Prince George. And, it's just really cool. Some little detail that you don't think is really going to matter at the end of the day really does, and bringing people in. But it was the same for us. So we were, first open, and I have no food experience prior to doing this. I have studied and studied and studied. I'm an academic at heart. I have studied everything there is to know about coffee. Hardly skimmed the surface, but still, I did a lot of work. And then, my staff are asking me how much milk to put in the jug. I'm like, I don't know. Let's just try it. And if that's too much, then don't do as much next time. And, same kind of thing. Like, you just don't know until you're starting to do it. And you don't know the language until you're like, well, that wasn't right. Mm-hmm. And then you start to refine it. And then by the time you're, a little bit in, you got it nailed.
Yeah, sir. And or you don't. And
right.
The funny thing is that we are still learning today. The other thing that I think is really interesting about Prince George and Northern BC, and I've experienced this, I've traveled all around the world. And when I go to other places, I don't get the same feeling that I get, which is very similar to both of our experiences. And that is the people here genuinely care about providing a really great experience for the people who come and visit, and including the people who live here. And that's not to say that we don't have challenges, as all municipalities do. But one thing that I think really separates Prince George is the kindness of the hearts of the people here, and the fact that they really are trying to send a message that this is a great place to be. And I don't think you can get that on social media. I don't think you can get that on other things. You said something else, which I think it would be really interesting. to hear more about, and that's that you, of course, are working with your partner.
Yes.
And that is a real challenge.
Yes.
I'm very fortunate to be able to work with several members of my family.
Yes.
And I can tell you that there are times when we don't agree on things, we don't see eye to eye, but we've been able to work our way through it. A lot of people can't. What are some of the lessons that you've learned in order to be able to separate your home life and your work life?
I mean, my partner's really good in that I think this is one of the things that has been really great for us, is that he has his day job. And so he recognizes that at the end of the day that this is my business, is how he likes to phrase it. I never say that. It's everybody's, it's all of ours, our teams, everything. But so that if it comes to having to make a decision, and if he and I don't see eye to eye, ultimately, it's like, it's your business. You do what you feel is right. And it's a field that I have knowledge in where he doesn't. And so he's been very kind to let me win.
Yeah. Well, as many husbands should probably be, right? Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to work.
Just let me win. Yeah. It's not been easy. It's hard. It's hard starting a business. It's hard doing construction and stuff that you don't know, and things go wrong and money's tight, and is this even going to be a thing that people show up for? And oh, guess what, there's a pandemic and now you're closed, haha. And so it has definitely not been easy on us, but you make a commitment to talk through. And if I'm having the tough day, he picks me up. If he's having the tough day, I pick him up, and you just keep walking together. And I think that's how you have to do it. There have been days where I can remember when we were doing the drywall at the shop, we had done, I don't know, probably 2 weeks of work on drywall and mudding and taping. If anybody who has done a reno knows, it's brutal. And we had done 2 weeks of work, and then our landlord came up and showed us what we had done wrong. And so when I walked into the shop, my husband and our daughter, they were pulling all of the tape that we had just spent 2 weeks. They were just ripping it off of the wall. And they came in and said, "What's going on?" And they informed me and they filled me in. And I said, "Okay." And then I just turned around and left. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't say anything. And then our daughter was like, "Mom, just leave." And Bruce was like, "Yes." Let's just let her be. Because, sometimes you just can't. And yeah, you find a way forward. You pick each other up. You dust each other off. And then, you keep at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely appreciate that. And there are, every entrepreneur, these are things people don't see, but every entrepreneur has a day where they sit in their office and they break down and they cry. Oh, yeah. And that is not to diminish anything that they've done. You have to be incredibly strong to be able to break through the challenges. And it sounds like you and your partner, your husband and your family, are all on board, and that probably strength and that support really brings you through those tough days.
Oh, definitely. There have been days where I don't have an office where we are, so if I'm having a tough day, I'm out there with the customers, and I have definitely served customers with tears streaming down my face. Like, it's just how it is. And they'll be like, "How are you doing?" And I'm like, "Not good." And they'll be like, "I'm glad you're here." And it couldn't be more meaningful. Yeah.
So Makery is doing something that hasn't been done before. But because you're such a creative person, my guess is that you have some new things or things you're adding all the time. Or what's the future look like for the Makery? Where do you see yourself going?
Yeah, I can't wait. So the way that I've been looking at it is that we've been stuck and restricted in what we're allowed to do. And so I cannot wait for the moment where we can do whatever we want. And I don't even know what that looks like yet. And I'm so excited for it because we're yes people. Like, if something sounds fun, we're going to do it. If something thinks like, that sounds like it'd be a great time, well, let's just make that happen. So I've got some ideas of some lovely lovely events. Some of them are really wacky. Some of them are just beautiful. Just to bring people together in a really creative space that they probably haven't experienced. Definitely not in Prince George. And so to be able to do some of that stuff here, I think could be really, really rewarding and fun. And I can't wait to visualize what and how big we can go with some of that stuff. And, the ability to partner with other organizations and take all of our creative energies and mash them up and do some cool stuff together. I can't wait to be part of that. Yeah.
So if somebody says, that looks fun,
let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's call me up. Let's do it.
I'm all in too. Kim, it has been so awesome talking to you today. I really appreciate you coming in. What would be some last minute parting notes that you'd like to leave for the listeners? And in particular, how they can get their creativity and their juices flowing, maybe from home or hopefully they can come to the Makery.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the number one thing is that as grown-ups, we have lost the ability to play, that we are fraught with responsibility. We are scared to do something wrong, to fail. We're just told in everything that we do that we have to succeed. And I want to tell you, it's okay to fail. It's okay to look stupid. And sometimes you just don't realize how therapeutic it is to hot glue some shit to some other shit until you actually come and try it.
That's so amazing. Where can people reach you if they would like to get in touch with you on your social channels or something?
For sure. So we're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all at the Makery PG. And then our website is the Makerie, Makerie.ca.
Wonderful. Well, this is another episode of You Sip, I Sip. I am so blessed to be able to get to know you, and I'm really excited about seeing all of the future developments that happen with the Makery. We certainly appreciate you in Prince George, and I think that you are going to do very well.
Thanks, Dick.
Thank you for listening to You Sip, I Sip. Please hit the 5-star rating and leave us a review. If you'd like to learn more about Northern Lights Winery, text us at 604-670-4046 or visit us on social media at Northern Lights Winery.